AGHAMAZING, my dear students! Welcome back to our science video lesson. I am your science teacher, Teacher Larry, and welcome to AGHAMAZING way of learning science. We are now at our third quarter, Module 6 of Science 7. Here are the learning objectives. Number 1, identify the forms of heat transfer. Number 2, explain what are the conditions for heat transfer to occur. And number 3, appreciate the importance of heat transfer in everyday life. For our lesson for today, we are going to talk about heat and the three methods of heat transfer. But before we discuss the different methods of heat transfer, let us first understand the concept of thermal energy and heat. All forms of matter are made up of atoms and molecules. These atoms and molecules are always in motion, and they have kinetic energy. The energy that is moving or vibrating particles is called thermal energy. To define thermal energy refers to the energy possessed by an object or system due to the movement of particles within the object or the system. When thermal energy is transformed, heat is always produced. Heat refers to the flow of thermal energy. It is the energy that transfers from a body with higher temperature to a body with a lower temperature. The transfer of energy is due to temperature difference of objects. We usually thought that the heat and the temperature mean the same thing, but these two concepts are different from each other. Temperature is the measure of the amount of thermal energy or the degree of hotness and coldness of an object or system. It refers to the measure of the average energy of the motion of the molecules in the substance. It can be measured using thermometer. The three common scales that are used in measuring temperature are Celsius, Fahrenheit, and Kelvin. The SI unit of temperature is Kelvin. Meanwhile, heat refers to the transfer of thermal energy from a body with higher temperature to a body with lower temperature. It is the total energy of the motion of the molecules of a substance. The SI unit for heat is joules. The natural flow of heat is always from a hot substance to a cold substance, or from a substance with higher temperature to a substance with lower temperature. When thermal energy is transferred, the warmer objects cools down and the cooler objects warms up, until both objects attain the same temperature. The transfer of heat will stop when both objects reach the same temperature. To define, heat transfer is the process wherein thermal energy is exchanged between objects due to their temperature differences. There are three methods of heat transfer. They are conduction, convection, and radiation. Let us start with conduction. Conduction is the process in which the transfer of heat takes place between objects that are in direct contact with each other. This means that heat energy is directly transferred through a material. This method of heat transfer is most affected in solids. We can observe this transfer of energy when cooking. As you can observe, when the pan is placed under the fire, the pan is now in direct contact with fire. The heat energy from the fire will be transferred to the pan. That is why it becomes hot. As the pan becomes hotter, the heat energy will be transferred to the food that is placed on it. This is the reason why the food gets to cook and also becomes hot. What do you think is the reason why cooking pans are made of metals? You are right, because they are good conductors of heat. Conductors are materials that allow thermal energy to readily flow through them. Metals like silver, copper, steel, and aluminum are good conductors of heat. On the other hand, materials that transfer heat poorly are called insulators. Insulators are materials that resist or prevent the flow of heat. This is the reason why most of the cooking utensils have handles made of plastic, rubber, or wood. This is to prevent heat from flowing to the handles, which prevent us from being burned. The next method of heat transfer is called convection. Convection is the transfer of heat by the movement of fluids. Fluids is any material that flows. Examples of fluids are liquids and gases. Convection is the method of heat transfer through the circulation of liquid and gas. It is the transfer of energy by rising and sinking of matter due to density differences. A good illustration of convection is the boiling water inside the container. When the water molecules at the bottom of the container were heated, they became less dense. Since they became less dense, they will now rise. On the other hand, the relatively cooler and denser molecules from the surface begin moving downwards or start sinking. When these molecules are already at the bottom, they will start to get hot and become less dense, and eventually will rise again. This cycle is called convection current. The last method of heat transfer is through radiation. Radiation is the transfer of heat by means of electromagnetic waves. Therefore, there is no medium like water, air, nor any solid materials where heat can travel through. To summarize, heat refers to the transfer of thermal energy from a body with a higher temperature to a body with lower temperature. Temperature refers to the measure of the amount of thermal energy or degree of hotness and coldness of an object or system. Heat transfer is the process wherein thermal energy is exchanged between objects due to their temperature differences. The natural flow of heat is always from a higher temperature to a substance with lower temperature. The three methods of heat transfer are conduction, convection, and radiation. When we say conduction, this refers to the transfer of heat takes place between objects that are in direct contact with each other. Convection refers to the transfer of heat by the movement of fluids, and radiation refers to the transfer of heat by means of electromagnetic waves. That ends our lesson for today. See you again in our next science visual lesson, and we will explore, discover, and enjoy understanding science concepts.